Martialinsight here, and there's also another event this weekend, PFL versus Bellator. I will not be covering that one in this video, but I have bets on that card, and if you want it for free, then send me a mail on martialinsight@gmail.com, and I will send them to you. And also on my Instagram, I got a free confident pick for that event. You can check it out on my Instagram, Martialinsight. So the video came out late this weekend. I've been busy making bets for the squads, doing research, so we can make big money this weekend too. Last weekend we made 8 units of profit, very profitable event. And short recap on the predictions for last weekend. I did very well. Gave you guys a gift of a prop bet on the main event with Topuria to win by finish in round 2 or 3, and he got it done round 2, which gave 15 times your money in return, and called several other fights also, like Gary by decision, Martialinsight by decision, and Miranda Maverick by decision. Now let's get down to the breakdown for UFC Fight Night Mexico. Okay, Mohamed Naimov versus Eric Silva. Naimov, I think, is the better all-round fighter. It was very impressive in his last fight, beating a high-level fighter in Nathaniel Wood, and Silva lost to a not-so-great fighter in TJ Brown, who hasn't been successful in the UFC. Silva is now 36 years old, and Naimov is 28, so I expect big improvements from Naimov, and maybe decrease in performance from Silva because of the age. Naimov is the clear pick here for me. I think he got him covered everywhere skill-wise, but the fight is at high altitude in Mexico, which means that since both fighters seems to slow down in round 3, and if it gets to that round, then something not expected could happen that round, and I think that makes it risky betting-wise. But I think Naimov striking is too clean, and he catches Silva in round 2 and gets a knockout win. But keep in mind, I think there's a little more value on the underdog in this fight, considering the odds. He's a huge underdog at this point. So yeah, on to the next one. And we got Felipe dos Santos versus Victor Altamirano. Okay, so Dos Santos is a young prospect fighting out of jukebox, and that is clear to see with the durability he showed last fight and his pressure and striking skills. Shootbox is generally known for great BJJ, great cardio, pressure, and durability. As for Altamirano, he is the 10 years older fighter and has had a few split decisions in his career. And but I think the younger fighter in Dos Santos is for sure the pick in this fight. He went to a close fight with a high-level prospect in Manuel, and will most likely bounce back with a win in this fight, using his pressure to get a decision win in this fight. But this is another spot where I think it could be close, like the Naimov fight, and closer at least than the line indicates betting-wise. Altamirano is a big underdog, and I wouldn't be shocked to see this fight end in a close split decision. So maybe there's value on that prop bet. Maybe check it out. But my pick will be Felipe dos Santos by decision. The next one. Oh, sorry. Wait a minute. Oh yeah. The next one is Luis Rodriguez versus Denis Bondar. Luis Rodriguez is only 24 years old and will throw down. He's tough and got solid boxing and solid grappling. He seems improved from fight to fight and shows more experienced choices now in his fights compared to his Contender Series fight 3 years ago. Denis Bondar, on the other hand, just looks to have fun inside the cage, as at least what he showed last fight, and is not too serious about winning his fights, at least. And also, Denis Bondar is not great defensively, but seems to throw with some good power in his hands and primarily boxing style, but he also wants to mix in some grappling to get some submission wins. I think this is a really close fight, and I think I edged the 31-year-old fighter to edge a close decision. But the way I see it, it's very close. So I wouldn't be betting this fight, but my prediction is Denis Bondar to win a decision. And on to the next one, where we got Claudio Puelles versus Fares Siam. Puelles got very tricky grappling. It's very hard to deal with if you're not experienced, and his striking is nothing impressive. And he folded pretty quick once Dan Hooker landed the body kicks in his last fight, and he got pretty tired. Fares Siam is a young, tall striker with solid footwork and great kickboxing. Usually he struggles against grapplers, but that is usually when they got the wrestling to make it hard for him. And I don't think Puelles' wrestling is that good, and not good enough to consistently get it down to the ground. But be careful in this spot betting Siam, because I think Puelles is very unorthodox with the grappling, and he can find ways to get the fight down to the mat without using wrestling. It's a very hard fight for me to call, but I think I gotta pick the favorite in Fares Siam to win, probably by around 2 or 3 KO TKO, where the body kicks start to hit Puelles when he gets tired from higher altitude and his fighting style. And now we got Edgar Chairez versus Daniel Lacerda, or Daniel da Silva. These two has faced off before, where it ended in a no contest with a mistake from the referee who thought Lacerda was choked out. I think in this spot it's highly affected by the fact that it's gonna be at high altitude when Lacerda already has major cardio issues. Add the fact that Chairez is very hard to finish and manages his energy very well. I think he's the clear side in this spot, and I think he wins by finish in round 1 or 2. Hard to make a specific call by method, because I think the submission and ground and pound TKO is also very live. So my pick and prediction is Chairez by round 1 or 2 finish. I think he's the rightful big favorite. And now we got Aguilar versus Mendoza. And one of the first things to mention is Mendoza got a huge reach advantage by 8 inches. Aguilar's main weapon and specialty is his guillotine choke. Why is my screen doing that? I don't know. But I think skill-wise and physically, then Mendoza is superior, but his fight IQ that he showed last fight was very bad. And I think that is why he might be able to lose this fight. Honestly, a very hard fight to predict, because in my opinion, it all depends on if Mendoza is dumb enough to let Aguilar submit him with the guillotine choke. And I'm not very confident in a prediction in this fight, but I'm slightly leaning Mendoza to win this one by decision. Now we got Christian Quinones versus Raoni Barcelos. First off, Quinones is the significantly younger fighter, to be precise 9 years younger, and that should play a major factor in this fight. Improvements, durability, speed and power should be in his favor. Quinones really lacks grappling though, and is very susceptible to getting submitted, and has now been submitted twice in his career by rear naked choke. And I think the same thing could happen here easily. I'm not extremely confident on either side, but I think it definitely ends in a finish one way or another. I would say if you really want to bet the fight, then I think fight to not go the distance is a good one. But my prediction will be Barcelos to win by rear naked choke in round 1 by submission. And now we got Manuel Torres versus Chris Duncan. I think it's a pretty simple fight to break down. I think either Torres gets a round 1 finish, or if Duncan durability can hold up, and he can avoid the big shot from Torres, then he should be able to wrestle to a decision win here. I think there's decent value on Duncan to win by decision, which gives 9.5 odds in return, which means if you bet $100, then you will get 950 in return if the bet wins. But in terms of a pick and prediction, I think it's more likely that Torres gets it done by a first round knockout. We got Yasmine versus Sam Hughes, and this one is a clear setup for Yarugai to win in her home country in Mexico. Yarugai looks like the stronger fighter and should have good enough cardio to deal with Hughes' gritty style. In the striking, Yarugai got a huge advantage, and I think that will be the difference in this fight. So my prediction will be Yarugai by round 2 or 3 KO TKO. I don't think Hughes can withstand the major advantage Yarugai got in the striking. Also a rightful big favorite in my opinion, from what we have seen as of yet. Now we go on to Rosas versus Ricky Tercios. I think I pronounced it correctly, I'm not sure. But this is another clear spot where the UFC wants the home fighter to win in Raul Rosas. And Rosas is a young fighter, and I expect him and I expect to see major improvements from him being so young and training with fighters like Aljamain Sterling and Merab Dvalishvili, who beat the legend last weekend, Cejudo. Rosas has a major grappling advantage, and I think he will wrap up the rear naked choke submission in the first round in this fight. So my pick and prediction is Raul Rosas to win, and I think he's the rightful big favorite. Now we're on to another fight between Daniel Silva versus Francisco Prado. Two young prospects, another young fighter from Mexico on this card, and Silva got a big 8-inch reach advantage, and if he can use that really well, then he should win this fight. But I think Prado, being explosive, fast, and can throw bombs with his hooks, can make the difference here. And I also think Silva doesn't have the best striking defense from what he showed versus Almeida, especially where he got hit by a lot of telegraph strikes. I think the value is on the underdog here, and as for a prediction, I think Prado gets it done by a knockout in round 1. Now we go on to the co-main event between Yair Rodriguez and Brian Ortega. We saw 4 minutes of fighting from them last time, and then Ortega got injured, unfortunately, and has now been out for some time, and we don't know if he has improved or not in that period. Ortega had success up against the fence in the last fight in the clinch against Yair, and Yair showed to have a massive striking advantage from what we can see in those 4 minutes. This fight is heavily relying on Yair to be able to keep it standing and defend submissions. I don't think he can avoid the fight getting down to the ground, but I think he can defend the submissions and most likely pick apart Ortega in the striking to win this fight by decision. I think Ortega is tough enough, so it will not be easy for Yair to finish him in this spot. Last fight in the main event, Brandon Moreno versus Brandon Royval. These two fighters has fought before, where it also ended in an injury, where Royval, I think he had some problems with his shoulder too, like Ortega. I see this fight playing out similarly to the fight between Royval and Pantoja. Moreno is also very hard to finish as Pantoja, and he also has a major wrestling advantage over Royval, and he will force Royval to fight this fight off his back, which is just hard to win a fight off your back if you can't finish your opponent with submission, and even harder to win the minutes off your back, since being on top is scored higher by judges, position wise at least. My prediction and it's with high confidence I say Brandon Moreno gets it done by a decision. My high confidence is just him to win in general. Keep that in mind. My most confident picks are Yasmine Yarogai, Raul Rosas, and Brandon Moreno. Thank you guys for your time and make some money this weekend.